Hello everybody, welcome to Sega Does episode 36. I am Sam the Pixel Dude, and joining me virtually to my left we have Retronauts Midwest Gaming Classic panelist, that is the Dylan D. How are we doing, Dylan?
Ooh, I'm finally recovered from last weekend. It wasn't even that, I don't know, I'm just getting old, I guess, but it wasn't even that like strenuous. It just, I was exhausted traveling, so otherwise doing well.
Good.
How are you, sir?
I'm not bad. I am itching to get talking about, well, one of these games that we are looking at today. We have got some very nice looking Mega Drive games today. We're going to be looking at World Cup Soccer, Ghouls and Ghosts, Phantasy Star 2, Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf, and Super Hang-On. I'm very eager. Why don't you give everybody just a little 30-second glimpse into what you was talking about at that Midwest Gaming Classic?
Sure, yeah. Well, the panel was on the Master System, and Mr. Jeremy Parrish invited me to be a part of that, and that was back in February. So anyway, went there, went to the panel, talked about Master System games, and as an added bonus, SG-1000 as well.
Oh yeah,
I was not expecting that.
My favorite
but it was
topic.
right, and it was nice to bust out the little bit of knowledge that I have on the entire SG-1000 library. So yeah, it was a it was a great experience. Jeremy and Bob are class acts, gentlemen and scholars both.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Greg Seward was just incredibly fun to be around, and a great hotel roommate, if that is such a thing.
Yeah.
And it was a great time. Just it's kind of a whirlwind of a couple days, but all around very enjoyable. And the episode should be out, I want to say Monday, but if not Monday, definitely next week sometime. Yeah. So,
well, I can't wait to hear that. That's going to be quite interesting. So, enough of the Jeremy Parishes of this world. Let's talk about the Dylan D's and the Sega, shall we? Now, our first game we have today is World Cup Soccer. 16-bit soccer, Dylan. Any experience of this back in the 90s? I predict not.
Yeah. 8-year-old me, 9-year-old me probably would have ran away from this game. But I'm a bit more cultured, I'd say, now, at 30, and I actually don't mind soccer/football.
Really?
I don't mind it. What I should say, I don't mind playing it. I enjoyed playing it as a kid. I haven't played it in years, but it is a sport that doesn't offend my sensibilities, so to speak. Yeah. So I'm never like opposed to playing a soccer game, a soccer video game, particularly one that isn't super in depth, like World Cup.
World Cup. It's one of those sports games that's like, oh, there's a World Cup coming up. We've got to do something about it. Let's just throw a game together and see how it goes. I didn't play much of it. If I'm honest, I can't really remember much about when I did play it. 16-bit soccer. It's a weird one for me. Soccer games, football games as we say over here, didn't really... They were a real big thing on the Amiga, I remember. There were a few versions, a few soccer games on the Amiga, and they were still called soccer, which is really odd. They always had soccer in the title. It was really strange. Considering there's no way they touched an American shore, I have no idea why they were called soccer. But 16-bit soccer never really gelled for me. 32-bit, I remember playing a lot of FIFA 2000. It like football games in my circle, and I think probably generally, really picked up in the PS2 days.
I was gonna say, yeah, that was when I first started hearing about them a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. N64 had a couple
Yeah, there was
games that were really
International Superstar Soccer.
That's the one.
That's the
Yep.
one. That's the one. I believe that was the Konami one. And then that team went on to make Pro Evolution Soccer, which is to date the best football game ever made, bar none. It's a fact.
Okay.
And they kind of kicked EA's ass in the early in the late 90s to early 2000s. It was only when I don't really know what happened. I think people were kind of bored of playing with teams that were supposed to be called Liverpool, but were actually called Merseyside Red. And EA had just sewn up every single license you would ever think of, and poor old Konami just had to call their teams like Manchester Blue instead of Manchester City, and there's some really famous ones I can't remember, but one of the most famous ones is Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool Football Club was in the game always, forever, and probably forever will be called Merseyside Red in a lot of people's gaming minds. It's a very strange phenomenon that is probably very boring to our American audience, but anyway. So, World Cup Italia 90. Do you remember it actually happening?
Do I remember? Oh, this actually happening? Like when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no.
I was just wondering, what the television coverage was like in the States. Probably non-existent by the sounds of it.
In the 90s, I don't really ever remember hearing talk of soccer or football or.
Because it was 94, wasn't it? It was in the States. World Cup 94, where Diana Ross famously missed that penalty in the opening show.
Oh, I don't know.
No. Look that up on YouTube. That's hilarious.
Okay. Oh. Diana Ross, out of all people, huh?
Yeah, Diana Ross. She was singing "I'm Coming Out," I think, and she's dancing down the stage, and she's gone on to the football pitch, and there's this big goal and this goalie, and the idea was she was meant to kick the ball into the goal, okay, and the goalkeeper was going to amazingly miss it, obviously. Sure. And the goal split in half. Okay, as a special effect. But what she did is she kicked the ball and she missed the goal. Okay, but the goal still split in half. It's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. You've got to look it up. It's fantastic. A lot more interesting than this game. Pretty mediocre 16-bit soccer. Would you not agree?
Well, here's the thing. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's the best soccer game I'll get to, but for an early soccer game, you have to understand that what were our offerings prior to this? Champion Soccer on the SG, great in quotation mark soccer on the Master System. This is a real step up, in my opinion. And actually, the Master System version, World Cup Italia 90, which was also renamed Sega Soccer, is better than the Mega Drive version. So, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm of course giving it ratings based on other sports games. I'm not rating this based on, this doesn't get. I don't rate sports games next to Ghouls and Ghosts and be like, well, I like platformers better, so Ghouls and Ghosts is better. No, that's silly. But for a soccer game, it held my attention, and I could actually see myself playing it with friends if, for whatever reason, they wanted to play this in 2016.
You just imagine some of your friends going, "Hey, Dylan, you got that Italian 90? Yeah. I've always wanted to play that."
Yeah. Those happy guys with mullets on the cover. Yeah, let's bust that out.
I love that game. Some of your hipster friends are actually closet Italian 90 fans. Brilliant. Right, so I think we'll move on from that because this next game I really want to dig into a little bit.
Let's dig.
We've never actually, in all our guises on podcasts and all our discussions on and offline, I don't think we've ever talked about Ghouls and Ghosts.
No, or Ghosts and Goblins, or any of these Arthur games.
Capcom, pretty shitty platforming games.
Yeah, it's true.
This is, for some reason, regarded as a classic game. It is held up there. The NES version is held up there as one of the toughest games of all time. And for a period in like the mid 2000s when YouTube and like retro gaming was becoming popular, this game was held up there as one of those ultimate kind of challenges. It was one of those games that a lot of YouTubers like featured first. Famously, like the Angry Video Game Nerd did a real good video on it, and some Screw Attack stuff and stuff like that. And it really got put up on a pedestal that I really don't agree with.
No.
And I have no recollection of this back in the day at all on a Sega, on a Nintendo, on anything. I have no memories of it as a child at all. Do you have any experience of this actually playing it as a child, Dawn?
Oh, gosh. No. And I don't know why, because I loved spooky stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of like Castlevania. I don't have any recollection of playing Castlevania as a kid, which I should have because it's spooky, and my parents weren't restricting me from playing it. Right. So I don't. Anyway, I didn't try to get into the games until I was older, I'd say in high school with ROMs and stuff. And I hate Ghosts and Goblins. I hate it more than I hate this game. For the NES. The NES port is really bad, and it's just not a fun game, period.
No.
This game is so pretty to look at. Really love.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, really I love the visuals, and that's honestly how it got such a generous score. I didn't rate it highly, but I didn't rate it as poor as I probably would have. I just really. Oh, C minus.
What's a C minus?
The C plus is for the Master System version, because that one is actually better, in my opinion. Again, another strange occurrence of that happening.
Seems to be happening a lot of the minute.
Yeah. So, but I really, I like aspects. I just feel like it's hard for hard's sake, not hard because it's good to have a challenge in a game.
Yeah. I feel everything in this game is designed fantastically except the gameplay.
Right.
The sound, the music, the visuals, the concept, the actual characters themselves, the enemies. There's loads of character there.
Exactly.
This is obviously like one of the first times they could do this with the 16-bit. They could actually get the expression they wanted out on the screen. The backgrounds are really. They are. If you printed them out and stuck them in a frame, people wouldn't go, "What the hell's that?" They go, "Oh, that's nice. That's a nice piece." And it's just the gameplay's crap. It's really, really, really bad.
Arthur can't control worth a darn.
No.
I mean, he's slow. Compare. I mean, I understand he's not a robot, but compare his running to Mega Man. Mega Man is smooth.
You can't bring it. I don't like Mega Man.
Maybe Mega Man's not the best example for you.
Mario.
Well, Mario, yeah. Mario is a different. I was thinking more of like the difficult platformer.
Oh, okay.
The challenging platformer, or maybe Castlevania would be a good.
Yes, Castlevania.
Reference point.
Yeah.
Simon Belmont isn't the fastest, or any of the Belmonts. They're not that fast.
No.
But you still feel like you have control over them. Arthur just feels slow, and there's so much crap happening on the screen that you're not able to maneuver him the way you should. No. I put it this way, and I was actually kind of proud of myself because I felt like I'd never heard anyone say this before, though they probably have. It's like a platformer and a shoot 'em up mix together. But instead of controlling this this really fast ship, you're controlling this stubby man. And you have to deal with with all the limitations of a human body. That's what this feels like.
There's a lot of shooting to be done for a platformer.
Right.
That's very true. That's a great description. I like that.
Thank you. Here on the Sega Does podcast, we build up our own egos.
We do. We do.
So.
Let's have a look at what some of our friends thought about this. Now, Tony Wilkins says, my first experience of this series was the Capcom Classic Collection on the PSP. I love the reputation of the games, but it's not one of my favourites. That's a really good collection I've heard of. I don't quite know how it would play on a PSP because that thing's kind of terrible in your hands. But anyway, we got Kurt 13. It's got to be the biggest kick in the teeth in gaming history to slug your way through this insanity, and then find that not only have you not actually beaten the game, but you have to play through the entire thing again, only harder. That is one of the traditional tropes of the Ghosts and Goblins series, is it not, Dylan?
Oh, it absolutely is, and it's terrible. I mean, yeah, just playing this game twice in a row, I can't imagine. I watched. I'm not going to get into the history of this show if you've never heard of it, but Game Center CX.
Yep.
The Japanese show where this comedian plays through really old games and he's bad at them. Well, for whatever reason, he's pretty stinking good at these games.
Really?
He's beaten Ghouls and Ghosts on his own, and he's beaten Super Ghouls and Ghosts on his own.
Wow.
And he's notoriously bad at platformers, so it's very interesting that he would do that. But both of those games, I think he played them through twice. I think he did that.
Wow.
Just to get to the stupid bad ending.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good ending.
No.
It's just like a screen showing you saving the princess, and that's it. And then it's like the end. It's terrible.
We have E.T. here. I remember renting this when I first got my Genesis. Definitely a difficult game. I've never been a huge fan of the series, although it is very nice looking. I like getting comments from people that actually played this when it came out. Playing these games when they came out. We got a lot from Sean, was obviously a Mass System head back in the day, and I love comments from people. So if you have comments, people, about actually playing these games as a kid and experience them during the time, please let us know, because I always find those are the most interesting. We've got a big comment from Josh Dykeman there, so I haven't got that long, Josh, so I'm not going to go through that. What else we got? We have Sean. God Christ, Sean's going on a... Okay, we'll leave that today. So, Ghouls and Ghosts. It's just very disappointing for me. It looked fantastic. It looked like it could have come out any time period during the Genesis and it would have still looked good. It's just... It just plays rubbish.
Yeah. For 89, it looks astounding.
It really does.
It's definitely... I mean, I wrote in the review that I think this was the landmark title for the Genesis in 89. Well, if you think about the whole arcade perfect kind of platform that they were spewing, this is it. You know, I've seen the arcade of Ghouls and Ghosts. I looked it up on YouTube, I think, for the review. And I mean, yes, it still looks better, but this looks fantastic. Like like you said, it could have come out at any time. Yeah. And it still holds up today. But
talking about games that hold up,
you have to play. Yeah, let's segue. You have to play Ghouls and Ghosts to actually experience the visuals, unless you just want to watch a YouTube run through.
You don't get that pop, man. You just don't. Try and get these games, people, and play them. It's so fun. I mean, if you can play along with us, even like if you play one game or two games we're talking about in the podcast, it's so fun seeing the little tiny changes every like 6 months. People are not stealing ideas, but developing ideas and stuff like that. It's real interesting. Right. Now, talking about games that don't hold up, we have Phantasy Star 2. Now, I know a lot of people will be going, well, you did a whole episode on the first Phantasy Star. Why are you not doing a whole episode on the second one? Well, Dylan wrote a really nice, not spiely, there is a lot of detail in his 2-part review of Phantasy Star 2. I read it today. It took me a while, but it was, I would say, Dylan, one of the best reviews you've ever done. It really was.
Thank you.
It was very good. I mainly read it because I didn't play much of this game.
Yeah, well, I don't really blame you, honestly, on this one.
So you're going to be talking quite a bit in a minute, and I'm going to be going, yeah, interesting. But so hands up, I probably played 2 to 3 hours of this, and then I was like, no, can't do this. One of the ways, the way I played it was on the PS2 Mega Drive collection, which I strongly recommend to people. It's got a lot of the landmark Mega Drive games that we will be talking about. So if you want a cheap and easy way to play some of the landmark games we're going to be talking about on Sega does, that's one way. But Phantasy Star 2, Dylan.
Yeah. Phantasy Star 2 is sadly a step back from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I have my thoughts on why that is, but first, why is it a step back? Well, it kind of does what some games do today, which is to pad the length of the game. They make it so you have to fight characters and level up and get money to get items, and it's not like you're really doing much in between exploring towns and progressing the story. As a matter of fact, the first part of the game is very slow. Really, all that happens in the first part of the game is getting your 8 character party going, and you can only have 4 characters in your party at a time. But every time you reach a new town, and then you go back to the town you started at, which I believe is called Paseo, you will, in Paseo, you will find a new character at your house. And all the 8 characters obviously have different strengths and weaknesses, and some have magic and some don't. And but you really, obviously, you only have 4. And another part of the problem with Phantasy Star 2 is you really only need 4 of those people.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can level them all up, and that's what I was doing at first, which was taking forever because every character starts at level 1.
Wow.
Regardless of when they join.
Wow.
So, yeah. But you don't need to do that. Like, you need a healer in your party. There's only one healer. You need, well, obviously the main character can't leave.
No.
There's another guy, a bigger guy. His name is Rolf, I think.
Rolf.
Yeah, Rolf. And you need him in there because he has some of the strongest attacks.
Obviously.
And that leaves one other person, which you can change out. But there's a girl who has an attack that, like, her weapon like attacks 2 or 3 of the same enemy at one time. So why you wouldn't pick her, I don't know. So all that to say is they introduced several characters, which is cool and groundbreaking and whatever, but you really only need 4, which is what they had in the first game. So why even bother?
Yeah.
The story is fantastic for an 89 RPG.
Yeah.
It's very good. I was very, granted it, plot points were revealed, between long spans of like fighting and grinding and all that. But when they did happen, I was very interested in what was going to happen next. And I did feel like the ending was amazing and kind of ambiguous.
I must say, well done for beating this. A lot of people, well, let's say a lot of trolls would have given you a little bit of credit if you hadn't beaten it, but most people would have said, "Hey, fair enough, man. You played this Phantasy Star 2 like for 30 hours or whatever. You gave it a good shot, well done. But you beat it.
Yeah.
You beat Phantasy Star 2.
I'm not going to do that for every RPG, by the way. I'm just going to announce that right now. I'm only doing it for the important ones. And Phantasy Star 2, for how much I don't think it's aged well, it is an important game on the Genesis. And in RPG, in JRPG ville, if you will. It's there's a lot there that other games took from.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the main things, besides the fact that it just took forever to do anything, to level up your characters, to get enough money to buy the right gear, it took forever. I mean, in Phantasy Star 1, it was long, but I never felt like the game is just going on and on and on. This just, it was like a mini series that wouldn't end. It was like, isn't this a mini series, not like a long television show with numerous seasons? The biggest change in the game that I really dislike was the dungeons. They're not in first person anymore.
No.
And
I didn't like that.
I don't think their design was very good at all. It just felt like, oh, let's just confuse people and make this huge maze. But
what do you think made them change? Because that was, whether they liked it or not, a massive selling point of the first game.
that's what I was wondering. And I don't know, because I feel like they would have seen that. But see, there are some graphical elements happening in the dungeons, like how pieces of the dungeon, like ceiling, are in the foreground, and like your characters disappear. I mean, to me, that's not anything. I don't think it matters. But I guess maybe Sega thought that was cool.
I was real disappointed because I was like, the first person dungeons on the Master System look really good.
Yeah,
and then when you find out you're actually playing them on the Master System, you appreciate them even more. And then I was like, okay, right. So I know through being around retro games for a decade, Phantasy Star 4 doesn't have these dungeons, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So I was like, right, Phantasy Star 2, maybe this is the step. Like, let's see some 16-bit first-person dungeons. And I was really like, oh no,
yeah,
it's just, so disappointing.
Yeah, it's a tough game. I don't know how you would beat it without an FAQ, without any sort of help. And I know it came, people in the comments were like, well, it came with the hint book. I'm like, realistically, if you bought this game not brand new, that hint book is gone. I mean, realistically, that's just how it is. That's just how kids were. And so the likelihood of you having that is low. And if you didn't have internet when you were playing this, I just don't know.
Which you didn't.
Right, which you didn't. I don't know how you would beat it.
No.
And even when you do have the internet, even when it's still like it's a test of your will to play this. I'll just say that.
Test your might. Right. So the score you gave a score from the perspective of a 1989 lad, and you gave it an A, and then you gave it a today score of C.
Right.
Which I think is pretty spot on. I don't know whether in 1989, as a 12-year-old, I would have had the patience to play this, because I don't think I would have. But it doesn't... It's weird, because... Is it technically a better game than Phantasy Star 1 or not?
I would say if you were in 1989 and you were, let's say, a teenager who had the patience, okay? Let's say you played the first game and then you played the second game. I could see the argument between fans which one was better, and I could see somebody making a case for the second one.
Right.
I think Phantasy Star 2 would have blown most people's minds, particularly in 89. You got to think about what else is happening in 89, and there's not much. I mean, Dragon Warrior is finally coming out for the NES in 89 in America. And granted, it wasn't released in the US. Phantasy Star 2 wasn't released in the US until January of 90.
No.
But that's still early, and I don't even think Final Fantasy was out at that point for the NES.
No, I don't think so.
So this is, I don't know, Phantasy Star 2, it must have felt just like an epic adventure if you had a Genesis.
Well,
Which,
also, like, if you had a Genesis back then, you didn't buy Genesis for this. You know, you bought it for the arcade games. You know,
or if you were a Sega fan like Sean,
well, yeah. I mean, well, most people like they picked up the Genesis for Golden Axe and Hang On and Space Harrier. They didn't pick it up for Phantasy Star 2. These like for the time very Japanese centric games were like a bonus if you knew about them and if you
Right.
dared pony up the $90 or whatever whatever it was back then to play it. You know, it was like these games were like a treat for the older Sega. Like in 89, 90, I'll have a guess at saying most Sega Genesis owners were between the ages of 8 and 12, and there were some that were like 16, 17-year-olds. These games were like a treat for those guys. You know, if they could get hold of them, they were like, "Oh, this one's for you guys." You know. This isn't the kid. This isn't the kid dictionary. This this is the proper dictionary. It's got all the words.
I want to correct myself. I mentioned that Rolf was the beefy guy. Rolf is the main character. Rudo is the beefy guy that you want to use and want to have in your party. I renamed all my characters, so
you just call him Beef.
Yeah, no, I should have. I actually tried to rename them all Seinfeld characters. It didn't work very
You should have just called them like Ness and Pooh and Paul.
Oh, I should have.
Yeah.
Next time, right? Oh,
Next
wait.
time.
There won't be a next time.
Right. So, moving on. We have my favourite Sega Mega Drive game we have played so far.
Oh, right.
Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf, or how do you say that?
Super Hang On?
No.
Or are you trying to pronounce the Japanese?
I'm trying to pronounce Ozaki Nam.
Naomichi?
Naomichi. No
Yeah.
Super Masters. Basically, it's a golf game.
It
It's
is a golf
16-bit. My favourite kind of golf game. Because 16-bit golf is just brilliant. And you probably don't know this about me, Dylan, but I love 16-bit golf. It's fantastic.
Well, if all 16-bit golf games are as good as this one, then I will love 16-bit golf because I love this game.
This game
Arnold.
is brilliant. Oh, you gave it a
Yeah.
B+. Oh, fantastic. You did like it.
I did.
Yay.
Yep.
Okay, so a little bit of my 16-bit golf history. Here we go. Right. So, back in the day, I live in the UK, and in the UK we had this thing that was kind of actually better than a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis, but no one ever recognises it. It was called an Amiga, okay? And these things were great because you could copy games and get away with it, and it's brilliant. And one of the games we had on the unlabelled copy disc that everyone had was PGA Tour Golf, okay? Now, PGA Tour Golf is the best golf game ever made, bar none. I will defend it probably more than my children. Okay, it is that awesome of a golf game. You do not need any more than what you have in PGA Tour Golf, and it's weird because I played that a lot, and then I played what was it? There was another one I can't remember. It was like probably like 94 PGA night, and it was good, but it never had the majesty and the elegance of PGA Tour. Dylan, you're gonna have to emulate it. All right, PGA Tour Golf 91, Electronic Arts, Amiga 600, go. Okay, all right.
Okay.
So it's just brilliant. Okay, and then this game comes to me. Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf 16-bit game cartridge. Okay, so I stick it in. It's like okay, this cool, and I'm like, wow, this is like PGA Tour Golf, and what people don't understand about 16-bit golf games is the technical aspect of what some of them manage to do. Okay, so in PGA Tour Golf, or in any golf game, let's say Arnold Palmer Golf. Okay, you hit your ball from I'm trying to think of a way to explain this. A predetermined. Every time you start a course, it's always a predetermined spot. Obviously, the tee is a predetermined spot that the computer knows. okay, this is where the ball is. Okay, so it knows how to draw the landscape in front of you because it always knows that. But right, the technical clever thing that I always loved that my little box in front of me was managing to do this is you can hit that ball anywhere. Okay, well, pretty much anywhere in front of you.
Yeah.
And where that ball lands, your little box in front of you can then render the environment exactly how it's meant to be from any position you like and present it how it's supposed to be. It knows there are 10 trees over there, and if you hit it and there's a bit of water, and if you hit it there, then it needs to render it like it's rendering on the fly these technically 3D environments. And it's such the technical like gizmos behind what this is doing is so far ahead of what people realize it's doing. It's really, really impressive. And one of the very few golf games I'd ever seen do this in 16-bit was PGA Tour Golf. And then Arnold Palmer Golf comes along and it's doing it as well. It's done the Sega thing where they've got like a bar down the side with like an overview of the course, which I didn't really... It's kind of necessary for this because unlike PGA Tour Golf, it's kind of how you aim the ball kind of with this sidebar. But Sega loves sticking bloody bars down the side of their games for like 5 years or something. I don't know why, but they did.
Yeah.
But this, I really like this game. This, you know how people get addicted to like Candy Crush on their phone? Okay, I've got addicted this last week to Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf on my phone. Okay, I downloaded it, you know how, on my phone, and it's fantastic. I've talked too much. Go on, Dylan, talk.
I don't really have anything to add. It's just it's a really well made, really well rendered golf game that the leaps and bounds, I'll just say this because we talked about soccer earlier in the show.
Yeah.
The leaps and bounds that Sega took, I think more for sports games has impressed me more than anything.
Yeah.
Their sports games were crap on their previous two systems. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And these are like, for a guy who does not play sports, keep away from sports. I have a restraining order. These are great. These are great games. Well, definitely Arnold Palmer more than World Cup. I will say that.
Yeah.
But again, soccer, it's for soccer it was good, and then this is something you could just put on anytime. You could relax to this. You could take it seriously. And okay, so you said you're addicted. Have you gone through a tournament yet?
Yeah.
Completely completed it? Like it's...
Yeah, I mean, I came last. But
yeah, the game's pretty tough.
It's pretty tough.
But it's not... But I mean, I feel like it teaches you while you play, which is another thing that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
For a 16-bit game. I felt like it was... Like, as I played, I was getting better because I was learning the subtleties of...
Oh, God, that's exactly what playing golf is like.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's like. And I must say, if people are thinking, God, this guy's getting like a freaking hard on over this golf game, it's more the technical aspect of golf games before this were like top down. Like you plonk your little white pixel and you press your power bar and your white pixel ends up in a different place. What got me so excited about these games back in the day is you can hit that ball like just near the bunker and then it will render the course how it's meant to be. But you could also do that shot and hit it 2 feet like further left and then it will render it perfectly 2 feet further left how it would be. It is just like playing golf. It gives you the course to play with however you like. You could hit that ball anywhere and it will render the environment how it's supposed to be. Just like playing golf. It's the closest like game to real life sport I think there's been so far. If you understand what I mean, like obviously there's like Formula One racing games, but it's not really like Formula One racing. And there's like soccer games, but it's not really like playing soccer. But this golf game is pretty damn close to what it's like playing golf.
It's true.
You know, that's the cool thing. I mean, I must say I've played golf all my life, ever since I was like 4, and on and off, and that's probably why I like golf games quite a lot. But it's just great. I love it.
It is very good. So whether you like golf, like Sam, or whether you are kind of indifferent, like me, Arnold Palmer is a great game.
It is great.
Like it's great.
And you gave it a B+.
I did.
Which is 2 marks too low, but anyway. No. There are a few annoying aspects about it. I would like it to fill the screen, if I'm honest. And also, when it filled the screen, I would like it to give you, on the actual main like display, like behind your golfer, give you some rough idea where you're hitting the ball, rather than having to move your feet side to side. There should be some sort of reticle or a map you can switch to. You know, it's just a little bit not quite PGA Tour Golf 91. You know, you're nearly there, Arnold Palmer Golf. You're nearly
almost there,
but you're not quite there. So anyway, this is my favourite game. Anyway, we've got a comment from a guy called That Music that says, this game's worth it for that totally sweet-ass music. Which it does have pretty sweet music.
It does. We're going to start getting into some solid Sega soundtracks here.
We are.
Particularly with the next game.
Yeah, the next game. This is going to be interesting. Okay. Our next game is Super Hang-On.
This is my favorite game, by the way.
What, that we've played so far on the Mega Drive?
Of the well, certainly of the games we've talked about today. It's my favorite.
Okay, right. I went on a big man crush about Arnold Palmer Golf. Tell me what's so great about Super Hang-On. Come on, try and convince me.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back in time to Hang On in the arcade.
Yes.
If you had the pleasure of playing it, even with the bike handles, but particularly with the motorcycle cabinet, you will know how great that game is. The game is amazing, even today. It's fantastic.
Okay.
For an arcade racer, it was one of the first arcade racers, and I would argue that it still holds up for being 30 years old.
Right.
Okay. I've never played Super Hang-On in the arcade. Never. But I have played it on the Genesis, and I would argue that I would say the controls are pitch perfect. As pitch perfect as you can get without playing in the arcade. Yeah.
Really?
They are fantastic controls.
Really?
The arcade mode has been greatly expanded from the originals. There's I want to say there's 4 or 5 different kind of sections you can visit, and they all have different amounts of stages depending on how difficult they are. And that's the arcade mode. Now, old Sega, Master System Sega, would have been content to just port that.
Yep.
But they didn't. They also added an original mode, which adds RPG elements and kind of basically you play Hang On still. You still play the same game, but you have to watch your bike. You have to make sure that
you have to look after it.
Yeah, you have to care for it. You have to make sure the frame's good, the engine's good, the tires, all that jazz. And to do that, you win money from people who want to sponsor you. And the way you do that is by beating your rival in races. And this is a very hard mode. You don't win that much money at first, and you're going to have to sacrifice some parts to get very far. But once you do, I don't know. I love that mode. I just think that it really enhances the game and makes it a console port, like a true console port. This is what developers on the NES were doing with their ports, was adding features that weren't there.
Yeah.
Sega's finally got it. They
Yep.
finally got it. And not to mention, it's also a fun mode. At least I enjoyed it. It was different than just racing your motorcycle, which I also enjoyed. But this was just a different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think Super Hang On is great. I would play it. I mean, I played it for the blog, but I would play it today still. I kind of wish it was on my Sega collection for the PS3. I don't think it is.
No.
So,
yeah. I would agree with you in that it looked great. It expanded. It was actually a pretty faithful arcade recreation, actually. Pretty faithful. I have played the arcade version. Up until, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, there was still a cabinet actually at my local peer arcade. It was amazing. It's still there.
Wow.
It was crazy. I don't completely agree with the handling.
How so?
I don't know whether it was the controller I was using or what. It didn't quite have the precision you seem to have found. Maybe that's just the way I play racing games. I'm really into my racing games. I always have been. Not bike games. Don't like bike. Don't like bikes. Like cars. 4 wheels good, 2 wheels bad. I'm not gonna diss the game. I understand why it's such a landmark title, because it was not the first big Yu Suzuki game, but it kind of was like another one. It's like, man, this guy he's cranking them out. He's doing good stuff, and I just couldn't. It didn't feel that great to me.
Yeah,
and I'd probably give it a B. Around a B. I see you giving it an A-, which I do agree with. If I could play this game as with as much accuracy as you seem to have found, I'd probably agree. But I just couldn't quite get it to, I just can't get in the zone.
Yeah, handling is important, and if it doesn't connect with you in that way, it's really hard to.
I must say, like racing games in general, they are kind of like that. I mean, you probably don't even realise you do it yourself, but some racing games you just naturally gravitate towards. There's the MotorStorm games on the PS3. They look amazing and fantastic, and people really enjoyed them. But I just couldn't drive around that circuit to save my freaking life, But you put me on Gran Turismo, I can beat anyone. I used to have top 5, top 10 times in the world on many tracks.
Wow.
I can drive in a video game. I'm not bad. Like dirt rallies. More, I'm probably moving towards more simulation games. Yeah, I can do those. I don't know, but like Sega Rally is not realistic. But I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just didn't just quite gel with me. I mean, I thought it looked great. I mean, the frame rate, Jesus, melt your eyes.
Yeah.
Beautiful frame rate, and this was really one of those games. I think if you brought this when it came out, you'd have plugged it in, played it for an hour, and gone, yeah, money well spent.
Yep,
definitely.
I totally agree. This is the first, and we're gonna get a lot of comments, or maybe not. Who knows? But this is the first game that I actually kind of want to get on the 3DS.
Wow.
Part of the 3D classics. Yeah, I actually kind of want to spend the money to get this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
They don't do Arnold Palmer tournament golf, do they?
If they did, I'd be tempted. But I don't really know if you want to see that in 3D anyway. It's not that impressive.
Oh, I don't know. I got a thing about grass, man.
You got a thing for that?
I got a thing about grass.
Of yours?
Yeah. I got a thing about grass. I like grass. Nice grass. Smells good.
I see.
Anyway, so Super Hang On. Let's have a look at some comments. Sut says he enjoyed the review. It's really fascinating following your journey through the Segadom. I agree this game has held up remarkably well. I have the arcade version on the PS3, but even with its proper scaling, I found myself preferring the Genesis / Mega Drive version. That's very interesting. So I wonder if it's something to do with the aspect ratios or something like that. Probably threw it off for you, probably.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. What else we've got? GH. It says, great review, Dylan. Are you talking about the original mode? Brought back a lot of memories. Me crashing my bike halfway through every race, and Ricardo Valentini. How do you say that word?
Valiantly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's black on white. I can't see black and white. It's white on black. It's fine. And Ricardo valiantly trying to fix my bike with my meager funds. Yeah, that I kind of struggle with that as well. A great game and an early contender for my best Mega Drive soundtrack. I know you said you weren't keen on emulating versions of Super Hang-On, but the 3DS 3D version is fantastic. It's got great handling and speed, plus it lets you race every track in one huge race.
That's pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Though I don't
like
know,
that.
You would have to just be amazing. Assuming that there's a time limit. I don't know, maybe there's not in that race, but
imagine if you could do it.
You'd be king of the world for like a handful of people.
I know a few Sega arcade games do that, but when Forza Horizon 2 came out, I think it was set on an island, and the last race you had to race like all the way around the island, and it took like 28, 30 minutes. And
wow.
It was one of the most amazing things I'd ever done in a game, actually. It was really quite impressive. The game itself was pretty good. Not like amazing, but it was pretty good. But the fact they just had this, like, right, guys, we're going to start here. We're going to go all the way around and back. It was just...
That is pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Too bad it's on the Xbox One.
Yes, that was the second or third game I brought for my Xbox One, and then Halo didn't work, so it went. Right. So, Dylan, we have come to the end.
We have.
Of the Sega Does Podcast, episode 36. Do you have anything to add, sir?
I do not, except, yes, I do. I just lied. Most people probably know this, but I'm just throwing it out there. I revamped my Patreon, like completely revamped it.
Yes.
New tiers. I have a new write-up. Kind of explains my motives, I think, a bit clearer. And if you are so interested in that, please check it out. It's patreon.com/Dylan Cornelius. And yeah, I know I'm asking for money, but it's for the good of the site.
Yeah.
It is. And then you can find me on Twitter at TheDylanThe. Feel free to leave a comment on SegaDoes.com. And I'm trying, everyone, to get a SegaDoes.com like email.
Yay!
For whatever reason, I'm struggling with that.
Yeah.
I've done a few things in WordPress. And with my domain, the people who have my domain, but I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna have to do a little more research. But hopefully, that should be up very soon.
Podcast at SegaDoes.com. That's all we want. How cool!
Pretty much.
That's all we want.
Yeah,
it's possible. I'm sure you'll figure it out. We do apologise if the episodes have been a little bit light the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. We obviously Dylan's been away, being all rich and famous, like he does, and I've been away. But hopefully now we'll get back to our every fortnight, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is Sega Does Podcast, episode 36. Sega, Dylan.
Sega.